Rishi, are you ready?
I'm ready.
That's good. Well, thank you for coming on the show. This is episode number 19 of Lessons with Leaders. Today, I have my guest, Rishi, who I met for the first time about a week ago. And we had one of those conversations that I felt he just had to come on and share his philosophy for living and living your best self. Rishi, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Emo.
Thank you. So, one of the fascinating things after reading some of your philosophies was that you seem to capture very clearly the steps that one should follow to find joy. It's titled The Joy of Living. Could you just explain why you wrote it and what it's all about?
So the way most of us live our lives is we say there are things that we want to do and then there are things we have to do. And until we stop creating this artificial distinction, we haven't even begun living. It's about how we get to do everything. I believe that anything worth doing is worth doing well, or put it in another way, how you do anything is how you do everything. And
Right.
so that also begs the question, is one thing more important than the other?
What is the answer to that question?
For me, no. Everything is equally important. If it is not important, why are we doing it the way we are doing it?
So if you have someone who says, you know what, we live in a world that is super stressful, you have 1,001 things pulling at you, taking your attention, and people are feeling stressed. If somebody says, I want to take back control of the joy in my life for living, what will you tell them to do? How will you get them to start?
Well, first of all, trying to control anything, control itself is an illusion. So many of us believe that we can control things, but we cannot control anything. And the sooner we accept that, the quicker we'll be at peace with ourselves. So I think it will do us a lot of good just to let go and just go with the flow of life rather than try to make something happen. The funny thing is, it's not the events in and of themselves that really matters, but how we respond to it. And this is an age-old lesson, but it's so true. Everything outside of changing, it'll keep changing. Thing is, are we going to go with it or are we going to just stay rooted with who we are? Because all we have to do is to respond. Let me give you an example. How many of us complain about the weather? When it's hot outside, we say it's hot. When it's cold outside, oh, it's cold. Or when it's raining, oh, like, oh, the weather sucks. Instead of complaining about if it's winter, why not just put on a jacket? If it's hot, well, just remove the jacket. If it's raining, just take an umbrella. All we have to do is respond. That's all.
So if you had to break that down, what should I do every day? Is there some kind of a routine that I could practice? What will you tell them?
Uh, I think a good starting point would be to know that things in itself don't mean much. It's the meaning that we give to things. Yeah. So why spend extra energy or any energy on trying to make things happen or complaining about something? It's just exhausting.
So how do you play that back to someone who says, well, if you say I shouldn't try to make anything happen, then maybe I should just sit at home and do absolutely nothing, which would mean that the person might not be working or doing whatever. So how do you balance that so that you don't
Yeah.
get somebody to take that philosophy and then spin it the wrong way?
So it's not about not doing anything, but it's not about attaching ourselves to any future outcomes. So I believe every day is an opportunity for us to be and do our best. There is nothing to achieve and there is nowhere to arrive. So we'll achieve whatever there is to achieve and we'll arrive whatever there is to arrive by the virtue of what we are, not what we do. But it's only when we shift our focus to the being and we do everything better. But today we are so caught up in the doing of it all that we've simply forgotten to be.
And if you put that into practical steps, because at the end of the day, if I was telling, say I went to university, which I tend to go to a lot, and I was talking to a bunch of 20-year-olds, and I was saying, let me talk about the joy of living, and let me give you a couple of steps, practical steps you could take so you could go home and then start being mindfully adopting these philosophies. What do those steps look like?
Well, one of the questions I would ask the students is, are you only going to do X to get Y? Are you only going to study something because it's going to be on the test? Are you only going to go to school so it will help you get a job and so on? So the thing is, the main learning from this is maybe we can all do things for its own sake because the joy is in doing things and not as much in getting. them done.
In your blog, you talked about life is meant to be lived and not to be done. Is that what you just talked about just now?
Precisely.
The how trumps the what?
How trumps the what and the why. Because how we live every day matters way more than what or why we do something.
Can you give an example of how we live? What does that mean? You maybe explain that, because I guess at the
Yeah.
end of the day, we have to be able to explain things to people at a level where they could look at it and go, it sounds good, and I can hold on to something that I could take action for. So a lot of the questions that I'm asking geared towards, right, somebody says, I know I need to make a change, or I need to change the way I think, I need to change whatever, but it's the action steps. Someone could say, look, that's what I need to do. And I'm just trying to convey to the audience what that looks like. And so many of my questions will come with, oh, yes, this is good, but what do I do? This is great. How do I take action? This is good. How do I know I'm making a difference, or I'm changing something? Because there's usually some tangible action point, or some tangible task that will mean the difference between how they were living before and how they should be living now.
So the core philosophy, the less but better philosophy, is based on the idea that what's the point of embarking on a journey if you only care about reaching your destination, right? So let's say you are a student, you go to college or you go to school to study, and let's say you take the bus to the campus. The question is, how will your journey be? So the question is, why are we doing what we're doing? Are we doing something just so we'll get something at the end of it? Because in doing so, we lose out on the journey itself, which is kind of the point. And of course, when you arrive at the destination, that's bonus. But the true joy lies in doing the thing. So let's say you're a student and you got an assignment. And the question is, how are you going to approach it? Are you going to say, oh, I have to do this assignment? Or if you'll say, oh, I get to do this assignment. And so that's the difference between the things you have to do and things you want to do. When we focus on doing the thing itself, then that changes everything for us. And with that, the outcome speaks for itself. So you don't have to worry about the grades so much because the true learning happens in the doing of that thing. And because of that, you end up getting a better grade than you would have otherwise.
So I guess the example to that is the student who just decides to make the best out of every class. So they enjoy every class to the end. And then the icing on the cake is they get the certificate, or they get to graduate, as opposed to the
Yeah.
person who hates every class. I also mentioned something about to stop practicing gratitude and start living it. Can you explain what that's all about?
So I used to do this physical gratitude journal a few years ago. And what that looked like was every night I would take 5 minutes to fill that one page of the journal for that day. And one of the questions on that journal was, what are the three amazing things that happened today? And then I would list out things that I did and not things that happened to me. So if I had a fantastic chat with someone, or if I had a chat with a loved one, or if I learned something interesting, so it could be whatever. So the thing is, it was only after I stopped practicing gratitude did I start living with gratitude. And what I mean by that is, it's only when I stopped doing this journaling exercise did I actually get to live with gratitude. Because I realized that I was, by answering questions about specific things that happened that were amazing, I was basically a form of judgment. And so I was judging some moments against relative to other moments. And I realized that's no way to live because every moment is perfect in the way it is. And the perfection comes from what we bring to it. So that's when I stopped filling the paper journal and I started with gratitude. But it's not just about that. It's about if you're, let's say, going to mow the lawn, are you going to listen to music or do something to avoid mowing the lawn because you don't like it? Or if you're going to campus, are you going to enjoy your commute, or are you only going to listen to something just so you can get through your commute?
So the secret then is to enjoy the commute, or figure out a way to enjoy the commute.
The secret is to be here now.
So wherever you are, just make the best out of that and enjoy that.
Because as someone said, hurrying and delaying things are ways of resisting the present. Or when we listen to a podcast or a music, or when there's nothing wrong with listening to any of those things. But the thing is, when we are doing that to so that we can somehow get through the commute, or we can somehow get through mowing the lawn, which we don't like, or take any of the dislikes that we do things just so we can get through them. And therein lies the problem.
That's good. You also talk about the trade-off, joyfully.
So here's the thing. When we give our attention to everything, which means when we are here now all of the time, that means we can give our attention only to a few things over a period of day and so or in a period of week and so on. This may mean that we may end up doing fewer things in the short term, but we'll end up doing more things in the long term. But the difference is we will give our full attention to whatever it is that we are doing because it is worth it and because you are worthy of it.
Right. If I wanted to talk to business people about this, because again, the times that people go, "Oh, I hate Mondays," or "I hate whatever," right? How can we explain to business people, or just anybody in general, how to put this into practice so that every day is more joyous than otherwise?
So let's you're working with your team on a project. So there are two ways you can do the project. One is you're focusing on just completing the project. So the question is not if you'll be able to complete the project. The question is how you're doing the project with the team. Because the project is going to get done at the end of the day. So
Right.
that's not it's not a question of if. The question is how. Because you can either do the project with your team, it can be all fun and smooth, or it can be fraught with friction. And so how you do the project can make all the difference. And the how is the point.
It's good. Now, I know some of the other philosophies tie into this. Was it the one decision was one that I think goes hand in hand with trying to figure out ways to live more joyfully. So, could you explain what the one decision is, tie or demonstrate how that would tie into the joy of living?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that. It's a good question. So, so here's the thing, right? There are two ways we can live our life. One is, and we are all implicitly living our lives. Well, by all I most of us, and that's 99.99% of us, are living our lives with some kind of fear or pain. But we don't have to live our lives that way. The other way is to live with love. It's much easier when we do everything with love. And by love, I mean attention. The greatest gift we can give ourselves is to value our attention. But the one decision is about, decide once that, what, from now on, I'm just I'm going to live with love and I'm going to give my full attention to whatever it is that I'm doing. And you don't look back because you cannot drive forward looking in the rearview mirror. So you make the one decision, and yes, you will face challenges, you will face obstacles, but you keep coming back to the one decision that you've made. I'm living with love. I'm living my full attention to whatever it is that I'm doing. And this goes back to the first question that you asked, which is about how we do something matters more than what or why we do. So we will get the challenges. The question is not if, but when. Thing is, how are we going to deal with that? That if we deal with those challenges with love, it gets a lot easier.
That's great. Now, you gave an example in your blog about the person who applied for college and was waiting for it and all. Can you use that example to demonstrate to people what the one decision looks like?
So, in the example I shared, it would be a few months before they would hear back from which colleges they had applied to. But the thing is, until they would get a response, it's as if they have tied themselves to a leash because they've attached themselves to the outcome and they have implicitly chosen, but living with some kind of worry. What if I don't get the admission? Yeah. And by doing that, you've missed out on living those few months before you got the response. It does not matter what the response is from the college, but what is important is how you live those few months. That is the takeaway. As I said before, every day is an opportunity for us to be and do our best. And that's all we are entitled to. We are not entitled to the outcome. We are not entitled to the results. And if we are, then we must ask ourselves, are we only going to do X to get Y? Because the point is to do X for X's sake and not to get Y. And if or when Y happens, then that's bonus.
Right. Makes sense. Okay. Rishi, where can people find more information about you?
So you can learn more about about the less but better philosophy at lessbutbetter.com.
I will add that to the description of the video. Right. That's good. Wow. Of all the articles that you've written, which other one do you think ties with this joy more so than the others? In my mind, they all do, but I'm just saying if you had to pick one, what will you pick?
I will say this. You might want to read a subtraction piece.
What is the subtraction piece? And what's the takeaway from that before I read it?
Yeah, so the main takeaway from the subtraction piece is that we believe that life is about accumulation of knowledge and wisdom and wealth and money. And we believe that's where our true growth lies. But what if true growth is not about accumulation or acquisition? What if it is about subtracting? True growth is about adding to your life by taking away from it. Yes, so we have made an implicit assumption that we are fundamentally incomplete and that we need knowledge from this world to feel complete. We may pursue a degree or to get somewhere, or we may want a job to feel good. But what if life is not about that? What if we are already complete and that we have to way to real growth is by taking away from our life everything that obscures it.
What have you subtracted from your life that has made your life better and more joyful?
Yes. So I used to be the kind of person who was into stuff. I had luxury timepieces. I would be into shoes. I would be into all kinds of things. And it is only when I realized when you buy something, it makes you feel good for only a few moments. And so the thing is, nothing that we buy or no person in our life can make us feel good forever. And so if that is the thing, the answer cannot be more. So that's why I say more is not the answer. And
Right.
by that, anything that we look outside through our experience through people, places, things, or events, those are all fleeting. And so, what if it is not about that? What if life is about subtraction and not accumulation? What if we are already complete by the virtue of what we are? And it's not about reading 50 books a year. It's not about postponing our life. It's about realizing that we are complete and we don't have to acquire stuff, do any of these experiences outside that we usually do. Yeah.
Yeah. I like that. So it's about instead of postponing to enjoy something in the future, it's about enjoying now and you'll get to the future. And what happens in the future is what happens there. But at least you enjoyed getting to that place. I like
The
that.
future is here right now. The enjoyment is right now. So
True.
the best thing we can do for ourselves is to live here right now and enjoy the moment rather than putting off your happiness on some external thing in the future which you don't even know will come to pass.
True. Well, I have enjoyed this moment talking to you about joy. And you have one life to live. Why not live it joyfully? I want to thank you for coming on and sharing this with us. I hope that we'll be able to get you to talk some more on some other of the philosophies which you have down, and especially today in the environment we're in, where it seems like there's chaos all around.
So I'll just say this: things can be as chaotic as they can be outside, but if we remember that there can be darkness all around us, but that's okay because we are light itself. And so it matters less how dark things are outside. What matters more is to know that we are light.
It's great. That's a good place to end. We are light. Well, thank you. You have shared some light on joy for me today and to everyone else. And thank you once again. And we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Emo. I appreciate this chat. Thanks for having me on.